Hey, welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're going to talk about something you've probably seen a million times and never thought twice about, a pond. But what if I told you these weren't just simple pools of water? What if they were actually these super sophisticated, ancient engineering marvels designed to solve a problem of life and death? Okay, let's dive right in.
Just think about that for a second. Imagine you had to figure out how to get all the water you need for a full year, but it only rained for about 60 days. It's not a riddle, right? It's a real-world problem that has shaped entire civilizations. So seriously, how would you solve it? You see, for the people of ancient Tamil Nadu, this wasn't some thought experiment. The northeast monsoon would bring rain for about 2 months, and, well, that was pretty much it for the year. They absolutely needed a brilliant, sustainable way to capture and manage every single drop. And their answer? It was the humble pond. But listen, these were not just muddy holes in the ground. No way. They were the absolute cornerstone of this incredibly intricate water management network that kept communities thriving for thousands of years. So let's just get the basics down. A pond is just a body of water on land. Simple enough. And sure, some of them form naturally, but the ones we're talking about today were intentionally designed, engineered, and built. We're talking about real feats of incredible foresight. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, so what's the real difference between a pond and a lake? And yeah, usually ponds are smaller and not as deep, but here's a fun fact. There's actually no strict scientific line between the two. What one person calls a lake, someone else might call a pond. For our story, the key isn't the name, it's how they were brilliantly used. These ancient engineers had two main designs, and it all depended on where the water came from. First, you had your rainwater tanks. The name says it all, right? They just collected all the rainwater runoff. But the second type, fluvial ponds, these were a whole lot more complex. They were actually fed by rivers through a whole network of canals. So how did they actually build these things? I mean, this was way more than just digging a hole in the ground. It was a serious engineering project with a clear plan. Let's take a look at the blueprint. Every single pond had a few absolutely crucial parts. You've got the banks, of course, to hold the water in. But here's where it gets really smart. On the inside of the banks, they embedded these things called wave stones to stop the bank from eroding away. And then you have the sluices, a whole system of gates to precisely control where the water went for irrigation. The whole construction process followed this really clear 5-step plan. See, it wasn't just about the pond itself. They planned for overflow with drainage systems, they built those complex inlets and sluices, they prepped the land around it for farming, and they even drilled backup wells. It was a complete holistic water management system. And get this is where art and science just beautifully come together. Ancient poetry describes these ponds as being shaped like a crescent moon. Now, that wasn't just to make them look pretty. It was actually a super economical design. It meant a shorter bank could hold a much larger amount of water. Just genius.
Okay, so we've talked about the ponds, which are amazing in their own right. But hidden inside this system is one of the most incredible pieces of ancient technology I've ever heard of. A device so advanced, it feels like it could have been invented yesterday. The general word for sluice gate is a Mathagu. It's a scientifically designed system, usually some kind of door made of wood or stone that you can open or close to let water out for the fields. Pretty standard stuff for ancient cultures.
But the Cholas, they took this basic idea and they launched it into the stratosphere. They created something truly revolutionary. It was called the Kumizhi Thoombu. And this thing wasn't just a gate. It was a self-cleaning marvel of engineering. Okay, so take a look at this diagram. I know it looks a little complicated, but the idea behind it is just stunningly elegant. You see, unlike a simple gate on the shore, the Kumizhi Thoombu was built way out in the lake, like 200 or 300 feet from the bank. Now, why on earth would they go to all that extra trouble? Here is the absolute genius of it. The water pressure is always highest at the very bottom of a lake, right? Which is exactly where all the heavy gunk, the silt, and the mud settles. The Kumizhi Thoombu used this basic law of physics. It had two holes at different levels. The immense pressure at the bottom would force all that muddy, silty water out through the lower hole. At the exact same time, cleaner water from higher up would flow out the upper hole and go to the fields. The result? Every single time they used the pond for irrigation, it cleaned itself, automatically. This prevented silt from building up and kept the ponds working for centuries.
And we're not talking about some rare boutique technology here. This was done on a massive scale. It's estimated that over 39,000 tanks and lakes were built in Tamil Nadu from the Sangam period all the way to the British era. This tech was the very backbone of their civilization.
So what happened? We had this incredible, sustainable technology that literally supported a civilization for millennia. Why aren't we celebrating it today? Well, this brings us to a much more somber part of the story.
You have to understand, these ponds did so much more than just water the crops. They were crucial for water conservation, they acted as flood control during heavy rains, they protected people from drought, and they recharged the groundwater for everyone. They were a complete ecological life support system.
And what's so tragic is that the decline of these ponds isn't some new modern problem. This quote is from the Sangam-era poet Kabular. We're talking 2,000 years ago. And even back then, he was mourning the neglect and destruction of these vital water sources. He felt sad that such a special pond was being ruined, a feeling that, honestly, echoes to this very day. And that leaves us with a really critical question. Today, we face our own massive water crises, scarcity, pollution, you name it. An ancient civilization developed a sophisticated, sustainable solution that worked for thousands of years. So the question for us is, can we learn from their wisdom before it's all lost forever?